Question 1. Quality control measures reveal that a driver operating a vehicle in Canterbury is approaching their destination, but notices a persistent engine warning light illuminate on their dashboard. The driver is concerned about being late for an important appointment. Considering the Canterbury Road Traffic Act, which of the following actions best demonstrates responsible and legally compliant driving behavior? Option A. Continue driving to the destination, hoping the warning light will turn off on its own. Option B. Continue driving to the destination and then seek mechanical assistance. Option C. Stop the vehicle in the nearest available safe spot and immediately call for roadside assistance without further assessment. Option D. Immediately pull over to a safe location to assess the vehicle and consult the owner's manual. The correct answer is D. Immediately pull over to a safe location to assess the vehicle and consult the owner's manual. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance the immediate need to reach a destination with the overarching responsibility to adhere to traffic laws and ensure the safety of themselves and others. The pressure of being late can lead to impulsive decisions that compromise safety and legality. Careful judgment is required to prioritize adherence to regulations over personal urgency. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately pulling over to a safe location when a warning light illuminates. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the potential mechanical issue indicated by the warning light, preventing further damage to the vehicle, and more importantly, mitigating the risk of a breakdown or accident on the road. The Canterbury Road Traffic Act mandates that drivers must ensure their vehicle is in a safe condition to be on the road. Ignoring a warning light and continuing to drive could be construed as a failure to maintain a safe vehicle, potentially leading to penalties. This proactive measure demonstrates responsible vehicle operation and prioritizes safety above all else. Incorrect approach is analysis. Continuing to drive to the destination without investigating the warning light is professionally unacceptable. This approach disregards the potential for a serious mechanical failure, which could lead to a breakdown in a dangerous location, impede traffic, or cause an accident. It violates the driver's duty of care to other road users and the requirement to operate a vehicle in a safe condition as stipulated by the Canterbury Road Traffic Act. Seeking immediate roadside assistance without first pulling over to a safe location is also professionally unacceptable. While seeking assistance is a good step, doing so while still in active traffic poses a significant risk to the driver and other motorists. The driver must first ensure they are not obstructing traffic or creating a hazard before attempting to contact assistance. Ignoring the warning light and hoping it resolves itself is professionally unacceptable. This approach is negligent and dangerous. Warning lights are indicators of potential problems that require attention. Hoping for a spontaneous resolution is not a responsible or safe driving practice and directly contravenes the driver's obligation to maintain their vehicle in a roadworthy condition. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. When faced with a vehicle malfunction indicated by a warning light, the immediate steps should be: 1. Assess the immediate surroundings for a safe place to stop. 2. Safely pull over to that location. 3. Consult the vehicle's manual to understand the warning light's meaning. 4. Contact appropriate assistance, e.g., roadside recovery, mechanic, if necessary. This systematic approach ensures that potential hazards are managed effectively and that legal obligations are met. Question 2. The monitoring system demonstrates a potential speed infringement by a driver on a road within the Canterbury region. What is the most appropriate initial action to take? Option A. Verify the accuracy of the monitoring data and cross-reference it with the posted speed limit for that specific road segment before proceeding with any action. Option B. Disregard the alert as it is likely a system error. Option C. Contact the driver directly to discuss the potential speed infringement. Option D. Immediately issue an infringement notice to the driver based on the system's alert. The correct answer is A. Verify the accuracy of the monitoring data and cross-reference it with the posted speed limit for that specific road segment before proceeding with any action. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates a potential issue with a driver's adherence to speed limits on a specific stretch of road in Canterbury, New Zealand. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of the Canterbury District Council's bylaws regarding traffic management and the Land Transport Road User, Rule 2004, which governs speed limits across New Zealand. A hasty or incorrect response could lead to unfair penalties for the driver or a failure to address a genuine safety concern. Careful judgment is required to balance enforcement with fairness and accuracy. The best approach involves a thorough review of the recorded data against the established speed limits for that specific road segment. This includes verifying the accuracy of the monitoring equipment, cross-referencing the recorded speed with the posted speed limit signs, and any relevant signage indicating temporary or variable speed restrictions. If the data clearly indicates a breach of the speed limit, the next step is to follow the established procedures for issuing a warning or infringement notice, as per the Land Transport, Offenses and Penalties, Regulations 1999. This approach is correct because it prioritizes factual evidence, adherence to legal frameworks, and established administrative processes, ensuring that any action taken is justified and legally sound. It upholds the principles of due process and fair enforcement. An incorrect approach would be to immediately issue a penalty notice based solely on the initial alert from the monitoring system, without further verification. This fails to account for potential equipment malfunctions or misinterpretations of the data, potentially leading to an unjust penalty. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the alert entirely without any investigation, which could overlook a genuine safety risk and a breach of traffic regulations. A third incorrect approach would be to contact the driver directly to discuss the alleged infraction before any formal investigation or evidence review has been completed. This bypasses established procedural safeguards and could prejudice any subsequent formal action. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes evidence-based assessment, adherence to regulatory procedures, and a commitment to fairness. This involves 1. Initial alert reception and acknowledgement. 2. Independent verification of data accuracy and context. 3. Cross-referencing with applicable legislation and local bylaws. 4. Following prescribed procedural steps for enforcement or warning. 5. Maintaining clear and accurate records of all actions taken. Question 3. During the evaluation of one's fitness to drive on a busy highway in Ontario, a driver begins to experience sudden dizziness and blurred vision. Considering the potential impact on their ability to operate a vehicle safely, which of the following represents the most responsible and legally compliant course of action? Option A. Drive cautiously, assuming that the symptoms are minor and unlikely to cause a significant problem. Option B. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for alternative transportation or wait until symptoms subside completely before driving. Option C. Continue driving but focus intensely on the road, believing that concentration can overcome the physical symptoms. Option D. Drive to the nearest service station to assess the situation, even if it means continuing to drive with the symptoms present. The correct answer is B. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for alternative transportation or wait until symptoms subside completely before driving. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the broader responsibility of ensuring road safety and compliance with traffic laws in Ontario. The temptation to prioritize convenience over safety, especially when feeling unwell, can lead to poor judgment and potentially dangerous situations. Careful consideration of one's physical and mental state is paramount before operating a vehicle. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves prioritizing safety and legal compliance by not driving when feeling unwell. This aligns with the fundamental ethical duty of all road users in Ontario to operate their vehicles responsibly and to avoid actions that could endanger themselves or others. The Ontario Highway Traffic Act implicitly requires drivers to be in a fit condition to operate a vehicle safely. Driving while impaired by illness, even if not alcohol or drugs, can significantly reduce reaction times, cognitive function, and overall control of the vehicle, making it a dangerous act. This approach upholds the principle of do no harm and demonstrates a commitment to public safety. Incorrect approach is analysis. Choosing to drive despite feeling unwell and experiencing symptoms like dizziness and blurred vision is a direct violation of the implicit requirement to drive safely and responsibly. This approach disregards the potential for impaired judgment and reaction times, increasing the risk of an accident. It prioritizes personal convenience over the safety of oneself and other road users, which is ethically unacceptable and potentially illegal if an accident occurs due to impaired driving. Attempting to push through the symptoms by focusing intensely on driving is also an unacceptable approach. While it might seem like an effort to maintain control, the underlying physical or mental impairment remains. This approach fails to acknowledge the limitations imposed by the illness and can lead to a false sense of security, making an accident more likely. It still carries the same risks as the first incorrect approach, relying on the fact that the illness is not alcohol or drug-related to justify driving is a flawed rationalization. The Ontario Highway Traffic Act and general road safety principles do not differentiate the source of impairment. Any condition that compromises a driver's ability to operate a vehicle safely is grounds for not driving. This approach demonstrates a misunderstanding of the core principles of safe driving and a failure to take personal responsibility for one's fitness to drive. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, including driving, must adopt a proactive and responsible approach to risk management. When faced with a situation that could compromise their ability to perform their duties safely, the decision-making framework should involve 1. Self-assessment of fitness to perform the task. 2. Identification of potential risks to self and others. 3. Prioritization of safety and legal compliance over personal convenience. 4. Seeking alternative solutions if fitness is compromised. E.g. public transport, ride-sharing, delaying the journey. In the context of driving in Ontario, this means recognizing that any symptom that affects driving ability, regardless of its cause, necessitates refraining from driving. Question 4. What factors determine a driver's responsibility to adjust their driving behavior when encountering rapidly changing weather conditions on the roads of Canterbury, New Zealand? Option A. Assuming that current clear road conditions will persist regardless of weather forecasts. Option B. Only reducing speed significantly once visibility is severely impaired or the road surface is visibly hazardous. Option C. Continuing to drive at the posted speed limit unless immediate danger is clearly present. Option D. Proactive assessment of current and forecasted weather, considering its potential impact on road conditions, visibility, and vehicle control. Correct answer is D. Proactive assessment of current and forecasted weather, considering its potential impact on road conditions, visibility, and vehicle control. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to assess the potential impact of changing weather conditions on their driving ability and the safety of others on the road in Canterbury, New Zealand. The Canterbury region is known for its variable weather, including strong winds, heavy rain, and occasional snow in higher elevations, which can significantly alter road surface conditions and visibility. A responsible driver must proactively consider these factors and adjust their behavior accordingly, rather than reacting only when conditions become dangerous. The best approach involves a proactive assessment of current and forecasted weather conditions and their potential impact on driving. This includes considering how wind gusts might affect vehicle stability, how rain or snow might reduce traction and visibility, and how these factors might necessitate a reduction in speed, increased following distance, and greater vigilance. This approach aligns with the fundamental principles of safe driving as outlined in the New Zealand Road Code, which emphasizes anticipating hazards and driving to the conditions. It is ethically sound as it prioritizes the safety of the driver, passengers, and other road users. An incorrect approach would be to continue driving at the normal speed limit without considering the changing weather. This fails to acknowledge the increased risks associated with reduced visibility and traction, potentially leading to loss of control or collisions. It violates the principle of driving to the conditions and demonstrates a lack of foresight and responsibility. Another incorrect approach would be to only reduce speed significantly once visibility has become extremely poor or the road surface is visibly hazardous. This is a reactive rather than a proactive measure. While reducing speed is necessary, waiting until conditions are already dangerous means the driver has already entered a higher risk situation, potentially making it harder to regain control or avoid an incident. It suggests a failure to anticipate and prepare for the inevitable consequences of adverse weather. A further incorrect approach would be to assume that because the road is currently clear, the weather will not significantly impact driving. This ignores the dynamic nature of weather patterns, especially in regions like Canterbury, where conditions can change rapidly. It demonstrates a lack of situational awareness and a disregard for potential hazards that are not immediately apparent but are likely to develop. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that involves continuous observation and assessment of the driving environment. This includes actively seeking information about weather forecasts, observing changes in road surface and visibility, and understanding how these factors interact with vehicle dynamics and traffic conditions. The core principle is to always prioritize safety by adapting driving behavior to mitigate identified risks, rather than waiting for an incident to occur. Question 5. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a severe consequence if a driver fails to properly secure their load before driving on the roads of Ontario. Considering this, which of the following actions best demonstrates professional responsibility and compliance with Ontario's traffic regulations? Option A. Proceed with the journey, planning to check the load's security only at the final destination. Option B. Perform a quick visual check of the load from the driver's seat, assuming the securing devices are still effective. Option C. Rely on the fact that the load was secured earlier in the day and assume it remains stable. Option D. Conduct a thorough pre-trip inspection, physically verifying the tension and condition of all load securing devices and ensuring the load is stable. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough pre-trip inspection, physically verifying the tension and condition of all load securing devices and ensuring the load is stable. Explanation. The risk matrix shows a potential for a moderate likelihood of a severe consequence if a driver fails to properly secure their load before driving on the roads of Ontario. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to make an immediate judgment call about the safety of their vehicle and its cargo, balancing the urgency of their journey with the potential for harm to themselves, other road users, and property. The driver must consider their legal obligations under Ontario's Highway Traffic Act and the ethical responsibility to operate a vehicle safely. The best approach involves a thorough pre-trip inspection of the load securing equipment and the load itself. This includes visually confirming that all straps, chains, or other securing devices are taut, properly attached, and show no signs of wear or damage. The driver should also perform a physical check to ensure the load has not shifted and is stable. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the identified risk by proactively mitigating it. Ontario's Highway Traffic Act, specifically sections pertaining to vehicle equipment and load security, mandates that drivers ensure their vehicles are in a safe operating condition and that loads are properly secured to prevent them from falling or shifting. Adhering to this proactive inspection aligns with the legal duty of care and the ethical imperative to prevent accidents. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on a quick visual glance without physically checking the tension of the securing devices. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to adequately verify the integrity of the load security, leaving a significant risk of the load shifting or falling. It disregards the potential severity of consequences highlighted by the risk matrix and falls short of the diligence required by law. Another incorrect approach is to assume that because the load was secured earlier in the day, it remains secure. This is professionally unacceptable as it ignores the dynamic nature of driving, where vibrations and movement can loosen securing devices over time. The risk of a shifting load increases with distance traveled and road condition, and this assumption neglects the need for ongoing vigilance. A further incorrect approach is to proceed with the journey while planning to check the load only at the final destination. This is professionally unacceptable because it prioritizes expediency over safety, exposing other road users to immediate danger. The potential for a severe consequence means that any delay in addressing the risk is a failure of professional responsibility and a violation of traffic laws designed to protect the public. Professionals should employ a systematic decision-making process that begins with understanding the potential risks associated with their task, as indicated by the risk matrix. This should be followed by a thorough review of relevant legal requirements and established best practices for load security. The driver must then execute a comprehensive pre-trip inspection, incorporating physical checks to confirm the effectiveness of all safety measures. If any doubt or deficiency is identified, the professional must take immediate corrective action, which may include delaying the journey until the issue is resolved. This process prioritizes safety and compliance, ensuring that potential hazards are addressed before they can cause harm. Question 6. The control framework reveals that a Canterbury driver license applicant has disclosed a history of epilepsy. What is the most appropriate initial step for the Canterbury Transport Authority to take to assess the applicant's fitness to drive? Option A. Issue the driver's license with a provisional condition, allowing the applicant to drive only during daylight hours and on familiar routes. Option B. Immediately deny the driver's license application based on the disclosure of epilepsy, citing public safety concerns. Option C. Request a comprehensive medical report from the applicant's treating physician detailing the frequency, severity, and management of their epilepsy, and consult with a medical advisor if further clarification is needed. Option D. Accept the applicant's verbal assurance that their epilepsy is well controlled and does not affect their driving ability. The correct answer is C. Request a comprehensive medical report from the applicant's treating physician detailing the frequency, severity, and management of their epilepsy, and consult with a medical advisor if further clarification is needed. Explanation. The control framework reveals a scenario where a Canterbury driver applicant has disclosed a medical condition that may impact their ability to drive safely. This situation is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the applicant's right to privacy and access to services with the paramount public safety imperative. A careful judgment is required to ensure compliance with the Canterbury Road Traffic Act and the Canterbury Land Transport Rule, vehicle dimensions and mass, while also upholding ethical considerations of fairness and due process. The best professional practice involves a thorough and objective assessment of the disclosed medical condition's impact on driving. This approach necessitates gathering all relevant information, including medical reports from the applicant's treating physician, and potentially consulting with a medical advisor appointed by the Canterbury Transport Authority. The decision regarding the applicant's eligibility for a driver's license should be based on a comprehensive understanding of how the condition affects their cognitive abilities, physical control, and reaction times, as stipulated by the Canterbury Road Traffic Act's provisions on driver fitness. This ensures that decisions are evidence-based, legally sound, and prioritize public safety without unfairly discriminating against the applicant. An incorrect approach would be to immediately deny the license based solely on the applicant's disclosure without further investigation. This fails to adhere to the principles of natural justice and the Canterbury Road Traffic Act, which requires an assessment of fitness to drive, not an automatic disqualification based on a medical condition. Another incorrect approach would be to grant the license without any further medical review, assuming the applicant's self-assessment of their ability to drive is sufficient. This disregards the potential risks to public safety and contravenes the Canterbury Land Transport Rule, vehicle dimensions and mass, which implicitly requires drivers to be in a condition to operate vehicles safely and in compliance with all road rules. Finally, an approach that involves making a decision based on anecdotal evidence or personal bias rather than objective medical assessment would be ethically and legally unacceptable, as it undermines the integrity of the licensing process and the authority of the Canterbury Transport Regulations. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with acknowledging the disclosure and initiating a formal review. This involves clearly communicating the process to the applicant, requesting necessary documentation, and engaging with qualified medical professionals. The decision should be documented thoroughly, outlining the evidence considered and the rationale behind the outcome, ensuring transparency and accountability in line with Canterbury's regulatory framework. Question 7. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a driver exhibiting a slight hesitation when encountering an unexpected pedestrian crossing the road during a Canterbury driver's test. During the test, the candidate approaches a pedestrian crossing, and a pedestrian unexpectedly steps onto the road. The candidate's reaction involves a noticeable but not abrupt braking action and a slight swerve to avoid the pedestrian, successfully clearing them with ample space. Considering the Canterbury Road Safety Regulations, which of the following is the most appropriate professional response? Option A. Ignore the incident and continue the test without comment, as the pedestrian was successfully avoided. Option B. Immediately terminate the test due to the unexpected pedestrian and the candidate's reaction, as it indicates a potential for future unsafe driving. Option C. Continue the test, noting the candidate's reaction as a demonstration of controlled avoidance, and assess their overall performance in subsequent maneuvers. Option D. Make a note of the hesitation but do not assess its impact on the immediate safety of the maneuver, continuing the test as normal. The correct answer is C. Continue the test, noting the candidate's reaction as a demonstration of controlled avoidance, and assess their overall performance in subsequent maneuvers. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient service delivery with the fundamental obligation to ensure the safety of all road users. The Canterbury Driver's Test, governed by the Canterbury Road Safety Regulation, mandates a thorough assessment of a driver's ability to operate a vehicle safely in various conditions. A driver's ability to react to unexpected events is a critical component of this assessment. The challenge lies in determining when an observed behavior, while potentially indicative of a future risk, crosses the threshold into a demonstrable current inability to control the vehicle safely, thus necessitating immediate intervention. The correct approach involves a nuanced assessment of the driver's reaction in the context of the specific maneuver and the overall driving environment. This approach prioritizes the immediate safety of the candidate, the examiner, and other road users. It recognizes that while a minor hesitation or a slightly delayed reaction might occur, the critical factor is whether the driver maintains control of the vehicle and can recover from the situation without posing a danger. This aligns with the Canterbury Road Safety Regulations' emphasis on practical demonstration of safe driving skills, which includes the ability to respond appropriately to dynamic road conditions. The regulations require examiners to assess not just adherence to rules, but also the underlying judgment and control demonstrated by the driver. An incorrect approach that involves immediately terminating the test based on a single, minor instance of delayed reaction, without further observation or consideration of the context, fails to adhere to the principle of a comprehensive assessment. This could lead to an unfair termination of the test and does not fully capture the driver's overall competency. It also risks overreacting to a situation that a competent driver might recover from. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the observed hesitation and continue the test as if nothing happened, is professionally unacceptable. This directly contravenes the Canterbury Road Safety Regulations' mandate to identify and address potential safety hazards. Failing to acknowledge and assess a deviation from safe driving practice, even if it doesn't immediately lead to a dangerous situation, undermines the integrity of the testing process and could result in a less competent driver being licensed. A third incorrect approach, which is to make a note of the hesitation but not to assess its impact on the immediate safety of the maneuver, also fails to meet regulatory requirements. The Canterbury Road Safety Regulations require examiners to actively assess the driver's response to all observed behaviors that could affect safety. Simply noting an observation without evaluating its significance in terms of safe control is insufficient. The professional reasoning process for such situation should involve a continuous assessment loop. First, observe the driver's behavior. Second, contextualize the behavior within the specific maneuver and the surrounding environment. Third, evaluate the immediate impact on vehicle control and the safety of all road users. Fourth, determine if the behavior constitutes a failure to demonstrate safe driving ability according to the Canterbury Road Safety Regulations. If the behavior poses an immediate risk or demonstrates a clear inability to control the vehicle safely, intervention is warranted. If the behavior is a minor deviation that the driver recovers from without compromising safety, it should be noted and considered as part of the overall assessment, but may not necessitate immediate termination. Question 8. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a driver in Ontario, Canada, experiencing a mild but noticeable headache and slight dizziness while driving on Highway 401 is approaching a busy urban section. What is the most appropriate immediate action to take? Option A. Speed up to reach the destination faster, believing that the symptom will subside once the journey is completed. Option B. Pull over immediately to the side of the road, even if it means stopping abruptly in a potentially unsafe location. Option C. Safely pull over to the side of the road as soon as it is practical and safe to do so, to assess the symptom and determine if driving can continue. Option D. Continue driving at the current speed, assuming the symptom is minor and will not significantly impair driving ability. The correct answer is C. Safely pull over to the side of the road as soon as it is practical and safe to do so, to assess the symptom and determine if driving can continue. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the safety of others on the road. The pressure to reach a destination quickly, especially when experiencing a mild but noticeable physical symptom, can lead to poor judgment. The core challenge lies in accurately assessing the risk posed by the symptom and making a decision that prioritizes public safety over personal convenience, adhering to the specific traffic laws and regulations of Ontario, Canada. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves recognizing the potential impact of the symptom on driving ability and taking a precautionary measure. This means pulling over safely as soon as possible to assess the situation further or to seek appropriate assistance. This aligns with the Ontario Highway Traffic Act's general duty of care for drivers to operate their vehicles safely and to avoid actions that could endanger others. While the symptom might seem minor, the potential for it to worsen or impair reaction time, concentration, or physical control of the vehicle necessitates a cautious response. This proactive approach minimizes risk to the driver and other road users, upholding the ethical responsibility of a licensed driver. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to continue driving, assuming the symptom is minor and will not affect driving. This fails to acknowledge the unpredictable nature of physical symptoms and the potential for even mild discomfort to impair driving skills, such as concentration or reaction time. This directly contravenes the Ontario Highway Traffic Act's requirement for drivers to be in a fit condition to operate a vehicle safely. Another incorrect approach is to attempt to push through the symptom, believing that reaching the destination quickly is more important than stopping. This prioritizes personal convenience over public safety, clear ethical failure, and a violation of the driver's responsibility to operate their vehicle with due care and attention as mandated by Ontario law. A third incorrect approach is to stop in an unsafe location, such as the shoulder of a busy highway, to assess the symptom. While stopping is a good initial step, doing so without considering the safety of the stop itself can create a new hazard. This demonstrates a lack of comprehensive risk assessment, failing to consider the immediate safety implications of the chosen stopping point, which is also implicitly covered by the duty of care to avoid creating hazards on the roadway. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and compliance. This involves 1. Recognizing a potential risk, the symptom. 2. Assessing the severity and potential impact of the risk on the task driving. 3. Taking immediate appropriate action to mitigate the risk, even if it involves inconvenience. 4. Consulting relevant regulations and ethical guidelines, in this case, the Ontario Highway Traffic Act and general principles of road safety. 5. Prioritizing the safety of oneself and others above all else. Question 9. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in minor infractions reported by Canterbury drivers over the past quarter. Which of the following actions best addresses this trend from an impact assessment perspective? Option A. Immediately propose a significant increase in traffic enforcement across all road types in Canterbury to deter drivers from committing minor infractions. Option B. Advise that the increase in reported minor infractions is likely due to increased driver vigilance and does not require immediate intervention. Option C. Launch a broad, general public awareness campaign about road rules and safe driving practices throughout Canterbury. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of existing road safety campaigns and infrastructure changes implemented in Canterbury during the period to identify contributing factors and inform targeted adjustments. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of existing road safety campaigns and infrastructure changes implemented in Canterbury during the period to identify contributing factors and inform targeted adjustments. Explanation. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in minor infractions reported by Canterbury drivers over the past quarter. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of driver behavior and the effectiveness of current road safety initiatives, moving beyond simple data aggregation to identify root causes and appropriate interventions. It demands careful judgment to avoid overreacting to isolated trends or implementing ineffective countermeasures. The best approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment of existing road safety campaigns and infrastructure changes implemented in Canterbury during the period. This assessment should systematically evaluate the effectiveness of each initiative against predefined objectives, considering factors such as public awareness, behavioral changes, and accident data. By analyzing the correlation between specific interventions and the reported increase in minor infractions, this approach allows for data-driven adjustments to existing strategies or the development of targeted new ones. This aligns with the Canterbury Road Safety Strategy's emphasis on evidence-based policy and continuous improvement, ensuring that resources are allocated effectively to enhance road safety for all users. An incorrect approach would be to immediately propose a significant increase in traffic enforcement without first understanding the underlying reasons for the rise in infractions. This fails to address potential systemic issues such as unclear signage, inadequate road design, or a lack of public education on specific rules, and could lead to driver frustration and a perception of unfair targeting, undermining public trust and cooperation. Another unacceptable approach is to dismiss the data as insignificant, attributing the increase solely to increased reporting by drivers. While reporting can fluctuate, a consistent upward trend warrants investigation. Ignoring such trends risks overlooking emerging safety concerns or the unintended negative consequences of existing policies. Finally, implementing a broad, unresearched public awareness campaign without identifying the specific types of minor infractions being reported is inefficient. This scattergun approach wastes resources and is unlikely to achieve meaningful behavioral change if it doesn't address the actual problems drivers are encountering or causing. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data analysis, hypothesis generation, targeted investigation, and evidence-based intervention. This involves understanding the context of the data, considering multiple potential causes, and selecting solutions that are most likely to yield positive, measurable outcomes, in line with the principles of effective public policy and road safety management. Question 10. The audit findings indicate that Safe Pass Driving Academy in Canterbury may not have adequate financial reserves to meet the upcoming amendments to the Canterbury Road Safety Act, which mandate an additional 10 hours of simulator training per student. If the average cost per simulator hour, including instructor time, electricity, and software licensing, is $75, and the Academy trains an average of 500 students per year, what is the minimum additional annual revenue required to cover the new regulatory costs, assuming no other changes in expenses or student numbers? Option A. An additional annual revenue of $50,000 is required. Option B. An additional annual revenue of $375,000 is required. Option C. An additional annual revenue of $75,000 is required. Option D. An additional annual revenue of $3,750,000 is required. The correct answer is B. An additional annual revenue of $375,000 is required. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential shortfall in the financial reserves of a Canterbury-based driving school, Safe Pass Driving Academy. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the responsible party to accurately assess the financial implications of a new regulatory requirement, while also ensuring the ongoing viability of the business. The core challenge lies in translating a qualitative regulatory change into a quantifiable financial impact, and then making sound business decisions based on that assessment. Careful judgment is required to balance compliance with financial prudence. The best professional practice involves a detailed, forward-looking financial projection that incorporates the new regulatory cost. This approach directly addresses the audit finding by quantifying the potential impact of the new Canterbury Road Safety Act amendments, which mandate increased simulator training hours. Specifically, the Academy must calculate the total cost of additional simulator hours, factoring in equipment depreciation, electricity, instructor time, and any associated software updates. This calculation should then be used to project the impact on the Academy's operating expenses and, consequently, its profit margins. The justification for this approach is rooted in the Canterbury Road Safety Act's emphasis on demonstrable financial capacity to meet regulatory standards. By performing a thorough financial projection, Safe Pass Driving Academy can proactively identify any potential shortfalls and develop a strategy to address them, such as adjusting pricing, seeking additional funding, or optimizing existing resources. This aligns with the ethical obligation to operate a compliant and financially sound business. An incorrect approach would be to simply increase student fees across the board without a detailed cost analysis. This fails to demonstrate a clear understanding of the actual financial burden imposed by the new regulations. It is ethically questionable as it may lead to overcharging students if the actual cost increase is less than the fee hike. Furthermore, it doesn't provide the business with a clear picture of its financial health relative to the new requirements. Another incorrect approach is to defer the purchase of necessary simulator upgrades, assuming the current equipment will suffice. This directly contravenes the spirit, if not the letter, of the new regulations, which are designed to enhance driver safety through specific training methods. This approach risks non-compliance and potential penalties, and it fails to address the underlying issue identified by the audit. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to rely solely on historical financial data without incorporating the impact of the new regulations. Past performance is not indicative of future results, especially when significant new regulatory costs are introduced. This method would provide a misleading picture of the Academy's financial position and its ability to meet future obligations. The professional reasoning process for such situations involves a systematic approach. First, thoroughly understand the new regulatory requirements and their direct implications. Second, quantify these implications in financial terms through detailed calculations and projections. Third, assess the impact of these financial changes on the business's overall financial health and operational capacity. Fourth, develop a strategic plan to address any identified shortfalls or challenges, ensuring both compliance and business sustainability. Question 11. The efficiency study reveals a potential need to streamline vehicle inspection processes at a Canterbury testing station. Considering the regulatory framework of New Zealand, which of the following approaches best balances the drive for efficiency with the imperative of maintaining road safety and compliance with the Land Transport Rule, vehicle standards? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of proposed procedural changes, evaluating their effect on vehicle safety, regulatory compliance, and overall inspection effectiveness, with input from experienced inspectors and relevant data. Option B. Adopt new, unproven inspection technologies based on vendor claims of increased speed, without independent validation of their accuracy against New Zealand standards. Option C. Implement immediate changes to shorten inspection times to reduce operational costs, assuming that current inspection protocols are inherently inefficient. Option D. Prioritize feedback from a small group of inspectors regarding perceived inefficiencies, and modify procedures based solely on their suggestions, without broader analysis. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of proposed procedural changes, evaluating their effect on vehicle safety, regulatory compliance, and overall inspection effectiveness, with input from experienced inspectors and relevant data. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a potential need to alter the operational procedures for vehicle inspections at a Canterbury, New Zealand testing station. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficiency and cost-effectiveness with the paramount importance of public safety and regulatory compliance. A hasty or poorly considered change could compromise the integrity of the inspection process, leading to unsafe vehicles on the road and potential breaches of the Land Transport Rule. Vehicle standards. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to ensure any proposed changes do not inadvertently weaken the safety standards or create loopholes that could be exploited. The best approach involves a thorough impact assessment that meticulously evaluates how proposed changes to inspection procedures might affect vehicle safety, compliance with the Land Transport Rule, vehicle standards, and the overall effectiveness of the inspection process. This assessment should involve consultation with experienced inspectors, review of accident data related to vehicle defects, and consideration of potential unintended consequences. The justification for this approach lies in its adherence to the core principles of road safety regulation in New Zealand, which prioritize the prevention of accidents through rigorous vehicle standards. By systematically analyzing potential impacts, the testing station can make informed decisions that uphold these standards while potentially improving efficiency without compromising safety. This aligns with the ethical duty of care owed to the public and the legal obligations under New Zealand transport law. An approach that prioritizes cost reduction by shortening inspection times without a corresponding analysis of safety implications is professionally unacceptable. This would likely violate the spirit, if not the letter, of the Land Transport Rule, vehicle standards, which mandate specific checks to ensure vehicle roadworthiness. Such an approach risks overlooking critical safety defects, thereby failing the duty of care to the public and potentially leading to increased accidents. Another unacceptable approach would be to implement changes based solely on anecdotal feedback from a few inspectors without a broader, systematic evaluation. While inspector feedback is valuable, it may not capture the full spectrum of potential impacts on safety or compliance. This approach lacks the rigor required to ensure that changes are beneficial and do not introduce new risks, failing to meet the professional standard of due diligence. Finally, adopting new inspection technologies without a comprehensive assessment of their reliability, accuracy, and compatibility with existing regulatory requirements is also professionally unsound. While technology can enhance efficiency, its implementation must be validated against established safety benchmarks and regulatory mandates to ensure it does not compromise the integrity of the inspection process. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of any proposed change, followed by a comprehensive risk assessment and impact analysis. This should include gathering data, consulting relevant stakeholders, and considering all potential consequences, both positive and negative. The final decision should be based on evidence and a clear demonstration that the proposed changes will maintain or enhance safety and compliance with the Land Transport Rule. Vehicle Standards. Question 12. Market research demonstrates that drivers in Ontario, Canada, often face significant traffic congestion during peak hours. If a driver is running late for an important appointment and encounters a red traffic light at a busy intersection, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure safety and legal compliance? Option A. Drive onto the shoulder of the road to bypass the stopped traffic. Option B. Wait patiently for the traffic light to turn green, even if it means being late for the appointment. Option C. Accelerate through the red traffic light to try and get ahead of the congestion. Option D. Weave aggressively between lanes to move forward more quickly. The correct answer is B. Wait patiently for the traffic light to turn green, even if it means being late for the appointment. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance the immediate need to reach a destination with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to traffic laws in Ontario, Canada. The driver's perception of urgency, while understandable, must not override their legal and ethical obligations as a road user. Careful judgment is required to assess the situation and choose a course of action that minimizes risk to themselves and others. The best professional approach involves prioritizing safety and legal compliance above all else. This means acknowledging the traffic congestion and finding a safe, legal alternative to reach the destination. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the Ontario Highway Traffic Act, which mandates drivers to obey traffic control signals and signs, and to drive in a manner that does not endanger others. It also reflects the ethical responsibility of all drivers to contribute to a safe road environment. By choosing to wait or find an alternate route, the driver upholds these principles. An incorrect approach would be to attempt to bypass the traffic by driving on the shoulder. This is professionally unacceptable because it violates the Ontario Highway Traffic Act's provisions against driving on shoulders, unless specifically permitted for emergency vehicles or in designated situations. It also creates a significant safety hazard by putting the driver in close proximity to moving traffic and potentially obstructing emergency services. Another incorrect approach would be to accelerate rapidly through a red light to try and beat the congestion. This is professionally unacceptable as it is a direct and dangerous violation of the Ontario Highway Traffic Act. Running a red light poses an extreme risk of collision with cross-traffic, endangering all road users. A third incorrect approach would be to weave aggressively through traffic. This is professionally unacceptable because it demonstrates a disregard for safe driving practices and the rights of other drivers. Such behavior increases the likelihood of minor collisions and can escalate into more dangerous situations, violating the duty of care owed to other road users under Ontario law. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough assessment of the immediate environment and potential risks. This involves recognizing legal obligations, such as obeying traffic signals and speed limits, and considering the safety of all road users. When faced with a situation like traffic congestion, the framework dictates exploring legal and safe alternatives, such as waiting for the congestion to clear, seeking an alternate route, or accepting a slight delay, rather than resorting to unsafe or illegal maneuvers. Question 13. The evaluation methodology shows a need to assess the potential impacts of a new proposed driving test route in Canterbury, New Zealand. Which of the following approaches best represents a comprehensive and legally compliant impact assessment process? Option A. Rely on informal feedback from a select group of driving instructors and dismiss resident concerns about increased traffic volume as subjective. Option B. Undertake a superficial environmental review using readily available, but potentially outdated, public data to expedite the assessment process. Option C. Conduct a detailed traffic flow analysis, survey local residents for their opinions on potential noise and safety, and assess the ecological impact on nearby green spaces, all while referencing the principles of the Resource Management Act 1991. Option D. Prioritize the reduction of driver test times and associated costs for the Canterbury Regional Council, with minimal investigation into potential noise increases for nearby residents. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed traffic flow analysis, survey local residents for their opinions on potential noise and safety, and assess the ecological impact on nearby green spaces, all while referencing the principles of the Resource Management Act 1991. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a critical juncture in assessing the impact of a proposed new driving test route in Canterbury, New Zealand. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the potential benefits of improved traffic flow and safety with the potential negative impacts on local residents and the environment. Careful judgment is required to ensure the assessment is comprehensive, objective, and adheres to the principles of good governance and environmental stewardship mandated by New Zealand legislation. The best approach involves a thorough and systematic impact assessment that considers all potential consequences. This includes identifying all stakeholders, gathering data through multiple methods, surveys, traffic studies, environmental sampling, and analyzing the cumulative effects of the proposed changes. This approach is correct because it aligns with the principles of the Resource Management Act 1991, RMA, in New Zealand, which requires local authorities to consider the environmental, social, and economic effects of any proposed activity. It also reflects best practice in impact assessment by ensuring a holistic and evidence-based decision-making process. An approach that focuses solely on the perceived benefits of faster journey times for drivers, without adequately investigating potential noise pollution increases for nearby residential areas, is professionally unacceptable. This fails to meet the RMA's requirement to consider adverse environmental effects and could lead to breaches of local bylaws related to noise control. Another unacceptable approach is one that relies on anecdotal evidence from a small group of drivers and dismisses concerns raised by residents about increased traffic volume and potential safety hazards for pedestrians and cyclists. This lacks the rigor required for a proper impact assessment and ignores the principles of natural justice and procedural fairness, which are implicit in New Zealand's administrative law framework. Finally, an approach that prioritizes cost savings for the Canterbury Regional Council by skipping detailed environmental impact studies and relying on outdated data is also professionally unsound. This contravenes the precautionary principle often applied under the RMA, which suggests that where there are threats of serious or irreversible damage, lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures to prevent environmental degradation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the assessment objectives and relevant legislative requirements. This should be followed by a comprehensive stakeholder identification and engagement process, the selection of appropriate assessment methodologies, rigorous data collection and analysis, and the transparent reporting of findings. The process must allow for the consideration of alternatives and the mitigation of identified negative impacts, ensuring that decisions are informed, defensible, and in the public interest. Question 14. Stakeholder feedback indicates significant concern regarding the potential environmental and social disruption from the proposed Canterbury Regional Council, CRC, road upgrade project. Which approach best addresses these concerns while ensuring compliance with New Zealand's regulatory framework for infrastructure development? Option A. Proceed with the project based on engineering feasibility and cost-effectiveness, assuming minor adjustments can be made to address concerns as they arise during construction. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that includes extensive public consultation, detailed environmental studies, and the development of specific mitigation strategies before finalizing project plans. Option C. Undertake a brief preliminary review of potential impacts and then proceed with the project, planning to address any significant issues that emerge later. Option D. Prioritize the economic benefits of the road upgrade, focusing on engineering and construction timelines while minimizing public engagement and environmental scrutiny. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that includes extensive public consultation, detailed environmental studies, and the development of specific mitigation strategies before finalizing project plans. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient road network improvements with the long-term environmental and community impacts. The Canterbury Regional Council, CRC, must navigate the potential for significant disruption to local residents and ecosystems while fulfilling its mandate to enhance public infrastructure. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the project proceeds ethically and legally, respecting all stakeholders. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a comprehensive impact assessment that proactively identifies and mitigates potential negative consequences. This approach begins with thorough consultation with all affected parties, including residents, environmental groups, and local businesses, to understand their concerns and gather valuable local knowledge. Following this, a detailed study of environmental factors, e.g., water quality, biodiversity, noise pollution, and social impacts, e.g., traffic disruption, property values, community access, is conducted. The findings then inform the development of specific mitigation strategies and alternative project designs, which are presented transparently to the public for further feedback before a final decision is made. This aligns with the principles of good governance and environmental stewardship expected of public bodies in New Zealand, as outlined in the Resource Management Act 1991, RMA, which mandates considering environmental effects and public participation. Incorrect approach is analysis. Proceeding with the project based solely on engineering feasibility and cost-effectiveness, without adequate stakeholder engagement or environmental review, would be professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to comply with the spirit and letter of the RMA, which requires a thorough assessment of environmental and social impacts and public notification. It risks significant legal challenges, public opposition, and ultimately, project delays or cancellation due to unaddressed concerns. Initiating the project with a superficial review of potential impacts and assuming that minor adjustments can be made later is also professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and foresight. It neglects the fundamental requirement under the RMA to identify and assess adverse effects early in the planning process. Such an approach can lead to unforeseen environmental damage or community backlash that is far more costly and difficult to rectify than proactive planning. Focusing exclusively on the economic benefits of the road upgrade, while downplaying or ignoring potential negative environmental and social consequences, is ethically and legally flawed. While economic development is a consideration, it cannot come at the expense of environmental protection or community well-being, which are core tenets of the RMA. This narrow focus risks alienating stakeholders and undermining the CRC's credibility and mandate. Professional reasoning. Professionals in public administration, particularly those involved in infrastructure projects under New Zealand's regulatory framework, should adopt a proactive, inclusive, and evidence-based approach. This involves 1. Early and continuous stakeholder engagement to build trust and gather diverse perspectives. 2. Rigorous, independent impact assessments that consider all environmental, social, and economic factors. 3. Transparent communication of findings and proposed mitigation measures. 4. A commitment to adapting plans based on feedback and assessment results, ensuring compliance with relevant legislation like the RMA. This systematic process ensures that projects are not only technically sound, but also socially responsible and environmentally sustainable. Question 15. The assessment process reveals that a new driver preparing for their Ontario G2 road test demonstrates proficiency in basic maneuvers, but exhibits nervousness in complex urban intersections and when merging onto highways. What is the most professionally responsible approach for the driving instructor to take in the remaining time before the official test? Option A. Advise the driver to practice these challenging areas independently with a family member, as the instructor's time is limited before the test. Option B. Prioritize completing a mock road test on a familiar route to ensure the driver is comfortable with the testing format, even if it doesn't fully address their specific areas of weakness. Option C. Conduct targeted practice sessions focusing on complex urban intersections and highway merging, simulating real-world conditions and providing constructive feedback to build confidence and refine skills. Option D. Focus solely on the most common maneuvers and routes likely to appear on the G2 test, assuming the driver will gain experience with more challenging situations after passing. The correct answer is C. Conduct targeted practice sessions focusing on complex urban intersections and highway merging, simulating real-world conditions, and providing constructive feedback to build confidence and refine skills. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in driver training, balancing the need for thorough evaluation with the practicalities of time and resources. A driving instructor in Ontario, Canada, must adhere to the Ontario Ministry of Transportation's MTO guidelines for graduated licensing and road tests. The professional challenge lies in accurately assessing a new driver's readiness for independent driving, ensuring they can operate a vehicle safely and competently in various conditions, while also managing the schedule and expectations of the student and the testing center. This requires a nuanced understanding of what constitutes safe driving beyond simply passing the basic requirements, and an ethical obligation to ensure the student is truly prepared, not just test-ready. The best approach involves a comprehensive pre-test assessment that mirrors the actual road test conditions and criteria, focusing on identifying and addressing any lingering weaknesses. This includes simulating various traffic scenarios, evaluating hazard perception, and reinforcing safe driving habits. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the MTO's objective of producing safe and responsible drivers. By conducting a thorough, realistic simulation, the instructor fulfills their ethical duty to the student and the public by ensuring the driver possesses the necessary skills and judgment to pass the official test, and more importantly, to drive safely on Ontario's roads. This proactive identification and remediation of skill gaps minimizes the risk of the student failing the test due to unforeseen issues or lacking confidence in specific situations. An approach that focuses solely on the minimum requirements for the road test, without addressing underlying skill deficiencies or potential areas of anxiety, is professionally unacceptable. This fails to uphold the instructor's ethical responsibility to ensure the student's genuine competence and safety. It also risks the student failing the test, leading to wasted time and resources for both parties, and potentially creating a false sense of security for the driver. Another unacceptable approach is to prioritize completing the assessment quickly to move on to the next student, even if it means overlooking minor errors or areas where the student is hesitant. This demonstrates a lack of commitment to the student's learning and safety, and a disregard for the MTO's standards. It prioritizes efficiency over effectiveness and ethical responsibility. Finally, an approach that involves teaching the student only the specific routes or maneuvers likely to be encountered on the test, rather than a broader understanding of safe driving principles applicable to all situations, is also professionally flawed. This creates a driver who is test-savvy but not necessarily a safe, adaptable driver. It undermines the purpose of the licensing system, which is to ensure a baseline of competence for all road users. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes student safety and competence above all else. This involves understanding the regulatory requirements, assessing the student's individual needs and skill level, and developing a training plan that addresses all aspects of safe driving. Regular, honest feedback and a commitment to thorough preparation, even if it requires more time, are crucial. The goal is not just to pass the test, but to develop a lifelong safe driving habit. Question 16. Analysis of a learner driver's performance during a practical lesson in Christchurch, Canterbury, reveals they are struggling significantly with merging into moderate traffic. The instructor observes hesitation, incorrect speed selection, and a failure to adequately check blind spots. Considering the Canterbury Road Code's emphasis on safe merging techniques, what is the most professionally responsible course of action for the instructor? Option A. Adapt the lesson by finding a less busy area to practice merging or focusing on the individual components of a safe merge, such as speed and observation, before attempting to merge again in a controlled environment. Option B. Immediately end the lesson and send the learner home, stating they are not ready for this type of maneuver. Option C. Continue with the planned route, including the challenging merge, assuming the learner will eventually grasp the concept through repeated exposure and the pressure of the situation. Option D. Drastically simplify the rest of the lesson to avoid any further challenging situations, focusing only on basic steering and braking. The correct answer is A. Adapt the lesson by finding a less busy area to practice merging or focusing on the individual components of a safe merge, such as speed and observation, before attempting to merge again in a controlled environment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a Canterbury driver instructor because it requires balancing the immediate need to assess a learner's practical driving skills with the paramount responsibility of ensuring public safety. The instructor must make a judgment call under pressure, considering the learner's current proficiency, the road conditions, and the potential risks involved. This requires a nuanced understanding of risk assessment principles as applied to driving instruction, going beyond a simple checklist. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a thorough, real-time risk assessment that prioritizes safety above all else. This means the instructor must continuously evaluate the learner's ability to handle the specific driving environment, including traffic density, road surface conditions, and the complexity of maneuvers required. If the assessment reveals that the learner's skills are not yet adequate to safely navigate the intended route or perform the required maneuvers without posing an undue risk to themselves or others, the instructor must adapt the lesson plan. This might involve modifying the route, focusing on simpler maneuvers, or even postponing more challenging elements until the learner demonstrates greater competence. This approach aligns with the Canterbury Road Code's emphasis on safe driving practices and the instructor's ethical obligation to ensure learners are adequately prepared before undertaking more complex driving situations. The instructor's judgment must be informed by the goal of developing a safe and competent driver, not simply completing a predetermined lesson. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the planned route and maneuvers regardless of the learner's demonstrated struggles, assuming they will learn by doing, or that the test itself will reveal their deficiencies. This fails to uphold the instructor's duty of care and directly contravenes the principles of safe driving instruction. It places the learner and other road users at unnecessary risk, potentially leading to dangerous situations or accidents. This approach prioritizes the completion of a lesson plan over the learner's actual readiness and safety, which is ethically unacceptable and contrary to the spirit of driver education. Another incorrect approach is to abruptly terminate the lesson and send the learner home without providing constructive feedback or a clear explanation of why the lesson was altered. While safety is paramount, a professional instructor should also aim to educate and guide the learner. This abrupt termination, without proper explanation, can be demotivating and does not contribute to the learner's understanding of their own skill gaps. It fails to leverage the learning opportunity presented by the learner's difficulties and misses a chance to reinforce safe driving principles. A third incorrect approach is to overcompensate by drastically simplifying the lesson to the point where it no longer adequately prepares the learner for the demands of the Canterbury Road Code or potential real-world driving scenarios. While adapting is necessary, the goal is to build competence, not to avoid all challenges. This approach might lead to a learner who is overly cautious or lacks the confidence to handle common driving situations, ultimately failing to equip them with the necessary skills for independent and safe driving. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field should employ a dynamic risk assessment framework. This involves 1. Continuous observation, actively monitoring the learner's performance, looking for signs of hesitation, incorrect responses, or unsafe actions. 2. Environmental scanning, assessing the current road conditions, traffic, and weather, and how these factors interact with the learner's abilities. 3. Skill readiness evaluation, comparing the learner's demonstrated skills against the demands of the planned lesson or maneuver. 4. Adaptive planning, being prepared to modify the lesson plan in real time based on the ongoing assessment. This might involve simplifying, delaying, or substituting elements. 5. Clear communication, providing immediate constructive feedback to the learner, explaining the rationale behind any adjustments to the lesson. 6. Prioritization of safety, recognizing that at any point, the safety of the learner and others on the road must be the overriding consideration. If a situation presents an unacceptable risk, the lesson must be adapted or paused. Question 17. The review process indicates that a licensed driver in Ontario has recently been diagnosed with a condition that could potentially impair their driving ability. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure public safety while respecting the driver's rights? Option A. Rely on the driver's personal statement that they feel capable of driving and dismiss the medical information as irrelevant. Option B. Immediately suspend the driver's license based on the diagnosis alone, assuming the condition will inevitably impair their driving. Option C. Initiate a formal medical review process to gather objective medical evidence regarding the driver's current fitness to operate a vehicle safely, in accordance with the Ontario Highway Traffic Act. Option D. Consult with other drivers who know the individual to gauge their general driving habits and make a decision based on that informal feedback. The correct answer is C. Initiate a formal medical review process to gather objective medical evidence regarding the driver's current fitness to operate a vehicle safely, in accordance with the Ontario Highway Traffic Act. Explanation: the review process indicates a potential issue with a driver's ability to safely operate a vehicle due to a recent medical diagnosis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the individual's right to drive with the paramount public safety interest. A careful judgment is required to ensure that only medically fit individuals are licensed, preventing potential harm to themselves and others on the roads of Ontario. The best approach involves a thorough, objective assessment of the driver's current medical condition and its potential impact on their driving capabilities, adhering strictly to the Ontario Highway Traffic Act and relevant Ministry of Transportation guidelines. This includes obtaining all necessary medical reports and, if required, arranging for a medical review or driving assessment by a qualified professional. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the safety concerns raised by the medical information in a systematic and evidence-based manner, ensuring compliance with provincial regulations designed to maintain road safety. It prioritizes objective evidence over assumptions or personal opinions. An approach that dismisses the medical information without further investigation is incorrect, because it fails to uphold the duty of care to the public and contravenes the Ontario Highway Traffic Act's provisions regarding medical fitness to drive. Similarly, an approach that immediately revokes the license based solely on the diagnosis, without allowing for an individual assessment of the driver's current functional capacity, is procedurally unfair and may violate principles of natural justice, as well as specific provisions within the Highway Traffic Act that allow for conditional licenses or exemptions based on medical advice. Relying on anecdotal evidence or the driver's personal assurances without independent verification is also professionally unacceptable, as it introduces subjectivity and bypasses the regulatory framework designed for objective safety evaluations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the specific safety concern. This is followed by gathering all relevant, objective information, including medical reports and regulatory requirements. The next step involves a comprehensive assessment of the information against the established criteria for driving fitness. Finally, a decision is made based on the evidence and regulatory compliance, with clear communication to the individual regarding the outcome and any next steps or appeal processes. Question 18. Performance analysis shows that a driver in Ontario is experiencing mild fatigue and occasional blurred vision on the morning of an important medical appointment. They are considering their options for getting to the appointment. Which approach best demonstrates responsible risk assessment and adherence to Ontario's driving regulations? Option A. Honestly assess their fatigue and blurred vision, and if there is any doubt about their ability to drive safely, arrange for alternative transportation. Option B. Prioritize getting to the important appointment on time and drive, hoping the symptoms will resolve on their own. Option C. Drive to the appointment, assuming the symptoms are minor and will not significantly impact their driving ability. Option D. Drive to the appointment but plan to pull over immediately if their vision worsens or they feel too tired to continue. The correct answer is A. Honestly assess their fatigue and blurred vision, and if there is any doubt about their ability to drive safely, arrange for alternative transportation. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching responsibility of ensuring public safety on the roads of Ontario. The temptation to prioritize personal convenience over a potentially compromised ability to drive safely is a common ethical dilemma faced by individuals. Careful judgment is required to assess one's own fitness to drive, recognizing that even minor impairments can have severe consequences. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a thorough self-assessment of physical and mental condition before operating a vehicle. This means honestly evaluating symptoms, understanding how they might affect reaction time, judgment, and coordination, and making the responsible decision not to drive if there is any doubt about one's ability to do so safely. This aligns with the Ontario Highway Traffic Act, which implicitly mandates that all drivers operate their vehicles with due care and attention, and without undue distraction or impairment. Ethically, it reflects a commitment to the safety of oneself and others, a core principle of responsible citizenship and driving. Incorrect approach is analysis. Choosing to drive despite feeling unwell and experiencing blurred vision is professionally unacceptable. This directly contravenes the implicit duty of care owed to other road users under Ontario law. Blurred vision significantly impairs a driver's ability to perceive hazards, judge distances, and maintain lane discipline, creating an immediate and serious risk of collision. Driving because the appointment is important and assuming the symptoms are minor is also professionally unacceptable. This approach prioritizes personal convenience over safety and demonstrates a failure to adequately assess the potential impact of the symptoms on driving ability. The importance of an appointment does not negate the legal and ethical obligation to drive safely. Driving and intending to pull over if vision worsens is a dangerous and irresponsible approach. This reactive strategy places other road users at risk during the period of impaired driving. The decision to drive should be made based on current fitness, not on a hope that impairment will not escalate or be manageable. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a safety-first decision-making framework. This involves a pre-drive check that includes an honest assessment of one's physical and mental state. If any doubt exists regarding fitness to drive, the default decision should be not to drive. Alternative transportation options should be explored. This framework prioritizes the well-being of all road users and upholds legal and ethical responsibilities. Question 19. Operational review demonstrates that a driver involved in a minor traffic incident in Canterbury has expressed high confidence in their ability to drive safely and has received positive feedback from passengers regarding their courteousness. However, the incident report indicates a potential lapse in attention. Considering the Canterbury Road Traffic Act, which of the following approaches best addresses this situation? Option A. Prioritize returning the driver to their operational schedule by expediting their return to service, assuming the incident was minor and their confidence suggests they are fit to drive. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the driver's recorded driving data and compare it against the specific safety standards outlined in the Canterbury Road Traffic Act to determine if their performance meets regulatory requirements. Option C. Accept the driver's self-assessment of confidence and the positive passenger feedback as sufficient indicators of safe driving and allow them to resume their duties immediately. Option D. Focus the review primarily on the driver's interpersonal skills and passenger interaction, as positive feedback suggests a generally competent and safe individual. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the driver's recorded driving data and compare it against the specific safety standards outlined in the Canterbury Road Traffic Act to determine if their performance meets regulatory requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with the paramount duty to ensure public safety and compliance with the Canterbury Road Traffic Act. A driver's perceived confidence, while seemingly positive, cannot override objective risk assessment and adherence to established safety protocols. The pressure to maintain service schedules can create a conflict of interest, demanding careful judgment to avoid compromising safety standards. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves a thorough, objective risk assessment of the driver's performance, irrespective of their self-assessment or the operational pressures. This means reviewing the recorded data against the Canterbury Road Traffic Act standards for safe driving, focusing on adherence to speed limits, proper lane discipline, signaling, and hazard perception. The Canterbury Road Traffic Act mandates that all drivers operating on public roads meet specific safety criteria. A driver's subjective confidence is not a substitute for demonstrated safe driving practices as defined by the Act. Therefore, a review that prioritizes objective data and regulatory compliance is the correct and ethically sound path. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to accept the driver's self-assessment of confidence as sufficient evidence of safe driving. This fails to meet the objective standards set by the Canterbury Road Traffic Act, which requires demonstrable safe driving behavior, not just a driver's belief in their own ability. It bypasses the necessary scrutiny of actual driving performance. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize the operational need to return the driver to service quickly over a comprehensive review. This directly contravenes the spirit and letter of the Canterbury Road Traffic Act, which places public safety above operational expediency. Such an approach risks putting an inadequately assessed driver back on the road, potentially leading to accidents and contravening the regulator's intent. A further incorrect approach is to focus solely on the driver's positive feedback from passengers, without correlating it to objective driving performance. While passenger satisfaction is important, it does not necessarily equate to safe driving. A driver could be perceived as friendly or efficient, while still exhibiting risky behaviors that are not immediately apparent or concerning to passengers, but are critical from a safety and regulatory standpoint. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with identifying the core objective, ensuring road safety and regulatory compliance. This involves gathering all relevant objective data, such as driving logs, incident reports, and performance metrics, and comparing them against the specific requirements of the Canterbury Road Traffic Act. Any subjective information like driver confidence or passenger feedback should be treated as secondary and used to inform, not dictate, the assessment. When in doubt, erring on the side of caution and conducting further objective assessment is always the professionally responsible choice. Question 20. Investigation of a learner driver's expressed desire to drive at 110 km/h in a 100 km/h zone on a Canterbury highway. A driver instructor must assess the associated risks. If the learner's reaction time is estimated at 1.5 seconds and the average deceleration rate of the vehicle is 5 ms/s2, calculate the difference in total stopping distance between driving at 100 km/h and 110 km/h. And explain how this calculation informs the instructor's risk assessment according to Canterbury Road User Code principles. Option A. The stopping distance at 110 km/h is approximately 27.8 meters greater than at 100 km/h. This demonstrates a significant increase in the distance required to avoid a hazard, directly supporting the code's emphasis on maintaining safe margins and hazard perception. Option B. The stopping distance at 110 km/h is approximately 10.5 meters greater than at 100 km/h. This minor difference suggests that exceeding the speed limit slightly has negligible safety implications. Option C. The stopping distance at 110 km/h is approximately 5.2 meters greater than at 100 km/h. This small increase is acceptable given the learner's confidence. Option D. The stopping distance at 110 km/h is approximately 35.1 meters greater than at 100 km/h. This calculation is irrelevant as the learner's confidence is the primary factor in safe driving. The correct answer is A. The stopping distance at 110 km/h is approximately 27.8 meters greater than at 100 km/h. This demonstrates a significant increase in the distance required to avoid a hazard, directly supporting the code's emphasis on maintaining safe margins and hazard perception. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a Canterbury driver instructor by requiring them to assess a learner driver's risk tolerance and its impact on their driving performance, specifically in relation to speed and adherence to road rules. The instructor must balance the learner's desire for progress with the paramount importance of safety and legal compliance, as mandated by the Canterbury Road User Code. The challenge lies in quantifying risk and translating that into practical, safe driving behavior, ensuring the learner internalizes safe practices rather than merely memorizing rules. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a structured risk assessment that quantifies the potential for adverse outcomes based on the learner's observed behavior and their stated preferences. This approach directly addresses the Canterbury Road User Code's emphasis on defensive driving and hazard perception. The instructor should calculate the potential increase in stopping distance and reaction time at higher speeds, comparing it to the learner's current capabilities and the prevailing road conditions. For instance, if a learner expresses a desire to drive at 110 km/h in a 100 km/h zone, the instructor would calculate the increased stopping distance. Using the formula for stopping distance, which is approximately d equals v times t plus frac v22 times a where v is velocity, t is reaction time, and a is deceleration. The instructor can demonstrate the significant increase in distance required to stop at 110 km/h compared to 100 km/h. This quantitative analysis, grounded in physics and road safety principles, provides a clear, evidence-based rationale for maintaining safe speeds and adhering to posted limits, aligning with the code's objective of minimizing risk. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves dismissing the learner's concerns about speed and simply insisting on adherence to the speed limit without explanation. This fails to engage the learner in understanding the underlying risks and can lead to resentment or a superficial compliance that doesn't foster genuine safety awareness. Another incorrect approach is to allow the learner to drive at speeds exceeding the limit to experience the consequences. This directly violates the Canterbury Road User Code and exposes the learner, other road users, and the instructor to unacceptable risks, potentially leading to accidents and legal repercussions. Finally, an approach that focuses solely on theoretical knowledge of speed limits without practical application or risk assessment fails to equip the learner with the skills to make informed decisions in real-world driving situations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Identifying the core risk. In this case, the risk is the learner's potential to exceed safe speeds and the associated consequences. 2. Gathering information. Observe the learner's driving habits, listen to their expressed preferences, and understand the current road and traffic conditions. 3. Applying relevant knowledge. Utilize principles of physics, road safety, and the Canterbury Road User Code to assess the risks associated with different speeds. 4. Communicating effectively. Clearly explain the risks and the rationale behind safe driving practices, using quantitative data where appropriate to reinforce the message. 5. Making a judgment. Based on the assessment, determine the appropriate course of action, which may involve further instruction, practice in controlled environments, or restricting certain driving behaviors until competency is demonstrated.